Shoot, forgot to update something else. But good morning to those in the Philippines. Today we're going to be discussing Invest 93W, which is going to be threatening the Philippines over the next few days. We will also be discussing a couple other systems, but our main focus today is going to be on 93W. Let me just share the stream and then we will get started. And if you have any questions, you can always ask them in the chat and I will answer them in the later part of the updates. Okay, that's there, and then that is there. Okay, this should be working. Richie is the first person in the chat. Hello, how are you doing? All right, let's get into it now. Starting off with the worldview of tropics, okay, since there isn't a cone out yet. We're going to be discussing multiple systems. There's 5 areas of interest really to be watching. In the Western Pacific, we of course have 93W. That now has a 60% chance of development over the next 48 hours alone, and in total an 80% chance of becoming a tropical cyclone over the next 7 days. That is expected to meander westwards towards the Philippines over the next 2 to 3 days, and will be traversing the Philippines and then into the South China Sea, headed towards Vietnam over the next 7 days. Again, an 80% chance of formation. That is the biggest threat out of all these systems. Looking westwards into the South China Sea, we of course have the remnants of Koto, which are still lingering on for quite a while now, and the system is expected to dissipate over the next 2 days or so as it meanders towards Vietnam. Not expected to be too much of a concern for Vietnam, maybe portions of southeastern Vietnam. We also have Tropical Depression Ditwa, which has reformed, but it is now weakening as it meanders into India. That should be dissipating over the next, I'd say, 2 days or so. In the Australian region, we have a disturbance here with a 10% chance of development, and that's over the next 7 days or so. There is also starting to be a signal emerging over here south of Indonesia, which could develop, but that's just beyond the 7-day range. We may see that get added by tomorrow. And then we also have Invest 99P over here, which has a 20% chance of development over the next 48 hours. That's mainly tropical development, and a 30% chance over the next 7 days. If it forms beyond the 2-day range, that'll likely be something subtropical over here. Fortunately, that's going to be remaining out to sea. It is passing through some islands, but afterwards it should remain out to sea. We are currently code orange for 93W, but we are currently code yellow for the remnants of Koto as well as Ditwa. So code orange updates out every 4 days. That's why we're putting an update out on 93W. See, briefly showing the satellite imagery, it almost looked like a tropical cyclone at one point. It has a mid-level circulation, pretty organized. And overall, it's trying to get a low-level circulation organized as well. We can see some southerly winds on the southern side of the system now, indicating a potential circulation beginning to develop over here. We can see some decent convection, though, that was firing up earlier here, decent mid-level center, but that's all waning now. And if we look at infrared imagery, we can see how much it has waned since then. Those cloud tops were in the minus 70s before, now they're down to the minus, or up to the minus 50s or minus 40s. So really, this has waned quite a bit, and that makes sense as we get into diurnal minimum. And I did want to discuss some of the sea surface temperatures that the system is going to be traversing in. Very warm at 29 to 30 degrees Celsius all the way up until the Philippines. And oceanic heat content may become a factor as it stalls near the Philippines, and that's not going to be a problem whatsoever. Now, looking at the other conditions, shear is expected to gradually increase as it approaches the Philippines, so those conditions may become a little bit more unfavorable. Other than that, though, dry air not too much of a problem at all as this system continues in the Philippine Sea. Now, discussing distances, how far away is it from certain areas? Well, the system is currently around 1,100 kilometers away from the Catanduanes in the Bicol region, and it's roughly around 1,100 kilometers as well from eastern Visayas. Metro Manila, it's around 1,500 kilometers away from, and Vietnam, it's around 2,800 kilometers away. I did want to look at the various model runs and what they are predicting. Here's a look at the latest European run. It does have it becoming a tropical cyclone, stalling very close to the eastern Visayas region in the Bicol region as a tropical storm. It does then move through the Bicol region, Calabarzon, and Metro Manila. This would be on Monday night, rolling through Metro Manila. Then does enter into the South China Sea. Let's look at the run right before that. There's a tropical cyclone. It potentially becomes a typhoon before striking Vietnam. That is a possibility with the system, but that's beyond the 7-day range. Moving over now to the American model run and what it is forecasting. It does forecast it to remain quite a broad tropical cyclone as it meanders through the Philippines, but then it becomes a much more consolidated system by the time it meanders near Vietnam. Interesting bomb cyclone there that it's forecasting here just in the 10-day range. I doubt that's anything tropical. Maybe become something subtropical as it meanders to the southeast. That'd be interesting. I doubt it's there in the earlier run than that. Maybe? Interesting. Maybe seeing something there. Let's see if the European run was forecasting anything out of that. Not really. Yeah, could be looking out for some subtropical development in the open Western Pacific or open Pacific Ocean. Anyways, now meandering to the Canadian model run and what it is showing, it does have it becoming a decent tropical cyclone, nearly a typhoon as it meanders through the Bicol region, Calabarzon, and even portions of Metro Manila. It does then become a typhoon, a high or moderate Category 1 typhoon in the South China Sea before weakening and slamming into Vietnam as a severe tropical storm beyond the 7-day range. Now moving over to the German run, this signal does have it become, or this model does have it becoming a decent tropical cyclone as it moves through Metro Manila and those areas of the Philippines. This one does have it becoming a typhoon before striking the Bicol region in Calabarzon. Does meander just south of Metro Manila, still as a typhoon, entering into the South China Sea as a typhoon. I did want to pull up some of the ensemble members. These are the latest European ensemble members where they're showing it going. You know, some of these do show it hitting Luzon, which again is a possibility with the system. Mainly in portions of southern Luzon, though, seems to be the most likely areas, like Bicol region. Again, though, pretty much all of them do have it traversing westwards into the South China Sea, eventually hitting Vietnam in the longer range. You can see that on here, and let's pull up the earlier model run on here. You can see pretty much every single ensemble member does have it moving westwards into the South China Sea and then into Vietnam. Looking at the American ensembles, it's going to be a similar story here with all those having it moving westwards. You can see that again on here. Now, I did want to compare this with the European AI model run and what it is forecasting. And this has been a massive downtrend, fortunately. Let me go over here again. Yeah, quite the downtrend from what was forecasted earlier out of the system. So that's some pretty good news, but it is still expected to become a tropical cyclone meandering through the Bicol region. This would be on Sunday morning for you all in the Philippines. Then it moves through Metro Manila by around Monday morning or Monday night before entering into the South China Sea, likely as just a trough of low pressure, just a tropical wave, nothing too severe, at least on this model run. Now let's talk rainfall totals. How much rainfall could you see in the Philippines? Let's look at over the next 7 days, since there could be some decent rainfall totals across the Philippines. Starting off with the Bicol region, some of these areas could see rainfall totals up to 400 millimeters. Some localized areas. That does also include parts of the eastern Visayas region, mainly up to 300 millimeters of rain in those areas. Looking at areas around Mindoro, rainfall totals up to 300 to 400 millimeters as a maximum in some areas. Then looking at portions of the Cagayan Valley, some of those rainfall totals could exceed 700 millimeters over the next week. Looking at Metro Manila, at least on the European run, rainfall totals there are estimated to be at around 50 to 60 millimeters rainfall, so nothing too severe, at least from the European run. And areas in Vietnam could see rainfall totals exceeding 200 millimeters. Switching over to the American run, in terms of rainfall totals from this, areas in portions of this would be the Bicol region and eastern Visayas and western Visayas. Rainfall totals exceeding 400 millimeters. Some accumulations could reach up to 500 millimeters. And then looking at the German run again, some bullseye areas could see over 500 millimeters of rain, and this is including the Bicol region. But as you can see on this model run, Metro Manila gets practically no rain, at least on this model run. Again, it just shows the wide variability on these model runs. Now, if we look more at Invest93W and its forecasted track, can we even look at this? No, okay. It's been a little bit glitchy, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, so that kind of makes sense. And looking at the Google AI Ensemble members as to this system, 93W, in terms of what it's looking like in terms of a peak intensity, looks like a peak intensity of a moderate, maybe severe tropical storm before striking the Philippines there. But it looks like just tropical storm peak is the most likely case scenario. Then by the time it gets onto the Vietnam, should be a tropical depression at that point. Now let's look at some other of these signals. Okay, so starting off with the Atlantic, nothing. Eastern Pacific, nothing. Western Pacific, not really anything after that, just one singular ensemble member. In the North Indian Ocean, nothing really after Ditwa. But if we go into the southern hemisphere, starting off with the Indian Ocean, we can see a disturbance here, potentially forming within the next week or so. This has it moving mainly off towards the west, though, so not really impacting Indonesia too severely. We could probably pull it up like this, seeing where it's forecasted to go. Again, the consensus now does have it peaking out probably as just a tropical storm, but that is beyond the 7-day range. Then looking at the Australian region as well, though, there is another signal over here for potential developments, and then areas near Australia, or Australia and Vanuatu and Fiji, could see another disturbance over here beyond the 7-day range. Anyways, that looks like it's about it. Wilma could become a typhoon? Yes. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. And in terms of next updates, next update will likely be in probably 2 to 4 days, is what I'd guess. Maybe even higher than that. It all depends on how much of a threat this 93W system becomes. But I did just want to get this update out for you all now. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next update.